right? So now I have a very, very thin endometrium. It's very hyperechoic. Okay? The reason it's hyperechoic, remember, it's just a hollow tube, right? Our endometrium is just a hollow tube. It's connected. Okay? That's the inside of my endometrium. That's the inside of my endometrium. But if I have no blood, I have nothing there. It's just going to be a thin line. And that's why it's hyperechoic.
So that's the thin line?
This thin line right here. This thin line right here. See, here's my cervix, here's my lower uterine segment, here's my corpus, here's my fundus. Here is my endometrium. It's a hyperechoic line because of physics. Yes?
What is that circle
Hyper, this? Probably bowel, because what's back there? What's posterior to my uterus? Yeah, it's my sigmoid colon, my rectum, you know. Sometimes I can have fluid, see that little bit of fluid? We're going to be learning the spaces of the fluid. Okay?
So my question.
Yeah.
My question. So, the endometrium gets thick because of the progesterone or the LH? That's where I'm confused. Because
Oh, the LH has nothing to do with it.
Oh, well, don't
Okay,
confuse me
but
with-
if I have a deficiency in LH,
Yeah, that's what.
then I never ovulate. Okay, I never ovulate.
So you don't produce progesterone.
So I don't produce progesterone to make my endometrium thick. They call it luteal phase deficiency. Okay? Because estrogen, here I have a thin line. My two layers are right on top of each other. It's hyperechoic. Estrogen, 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 LH, progesterone, 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 progesterone. I don't get pregnant. I slough it all off. I start it all over again. I have a menses. I have FSH, FSH, FSH. With the FSH, I have estrogen, estrogen, estrogen. Ovulation, LH. Then progesterone, progesterone, progesterone. Okay. Follicular. According to your book, it is days 6 through 13. Some people bleed 1 day, some people bleed 2 days, some people bleed 2 weeks. Those have names to them. Okay? That's why we always choose the first day of bleeding as the last day of your menstrual, your last menstrual cycle. It's the very first day that you bleed. Okay? So during the follicular phase, my ovaries are producing FSH. FSH comes from what organ? Anterior pituitary gland. Okay? Ovulation, day 14. I have a spike of LH. What causes that spike of LH? Huh? No? What causes this spike of LH?
When the estrogen goes so high.
Inhibin. The anterior pituitary gland says, okay guys, I've had enough estrogen. I am full to the brim. My cup can't hold anymore. Let's stop with the estrogen so the ovaries produce inhibin. And it's the inhibin that tells the anterior pituitary gland, let's put out LH. Okay? Now, I'm putting out LH the whole time, but it's just a constant level. Yes?
Inhibin is a process or hormone?
It's a hormone.
Oh,
It's not a process.
Oh.
It's a hormone. because we're talking about endocrine glands. We're talking about endocrine glands. Inhibin tells the ovaries, inhibin is produced by the ovaries once the body receives enough estrogen. Okay? It talks to the anterior pituitary gland and says, okay, give me a spike of LH. That spike of LH is what makes the ovary let go of the egg. The egg is in the Graafian follicle. Once the egg is discharged, now that Graafian follicle is called a corpus luteum. Okay? Okay. And then the luteal phase is days 14, 15 through 18. What is days 15 through 18 endometrial? Huh? Secretory, because it's getting ready to secrete blood. Okay? What is the follicular phase? What's the endometrial phase of the follicular? Proliferative, because my endometrium is growing. This just, yes.
Can you go back? On the board, say follicular is ovary 1 to 14. What it say right here? 6 to 13.
Yeah, because that's the way I learned it, 1 through 13. I don't count menses.
Okay.
Okay, I don't count menses. It's just stage 1. As soon as I stop bleeding, my body's going to start producing more eggs for the next one. Okay? I have no idea. Okay, I can look it up. Okay, I can look it up. Okay? Here is my primary oocyte. The ova is called different things. A gamete, an ova, an oocyte, an egg.
Fertile egg.
Yeah, we call it all kinds of different, but really it's a gamete. Because you have a male gamete and you have a female gamete, they join and now we have a conception. Okay, so here it's growing, growing, growing. It's developing, it's getting bigger every day, okay? It's putting out estrogen, ovulation, day 14. It closes back up, now it's called a corpus luteum. And that corpus luteum is putting out progesterone, okay? Let's try to get through this because I want to try to have a test on this on Wednesday. We're going to study the exact same thing next chapter, just in more detail. Okay? So here is my ovary. The ovary is homogeneous. Myra, you were asking me, what's the epigenesis? See these hypoechoic? Those are follicles that did not develop into a Graafian follicle. This is after ovulation. Here is a corpus luteum. It's usually anechoic. Here, it's involuted on itself here. See how it's hyperechoic? Think of it like this. Here's my corpus luteum. Here's my follicle. The corpus luteum is going to stay big. I didn't get pregnant now, so it involutes on itself, like a volcano does. It involutes on itself, and that's why it's hyperechoic, because it collapses in on itself.
What phase is that again?
After day 14. After it's let the egg out. Now, this should never be over 2.5 centimeters. If it's over 2.5 centimeters, it's not a Graafian follicle, it is a corpus luteum. They look exactly the same. The only difference this will have a ring of fire. When I put color on it, it will have color all the way around it, if it's a corpus luteum. But we have to be careful because so does an ectopic. So here is my ovary in the follicular phase. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 follicles trying to develop into a Graafian follicle.
So fraternal twins, is that 2 of those?
You're way ahead of us. Yes, fraternal twins, I've spit out 2 eggs. Okay, I've spit out 2 eggs. Okay? Okay,
So in the previous picture, what do we have to know that you say is going to be?
I'm sorry?
This one, not the other one. What do we have to know about the measurements? Like, because you say there's important in this one.
No, I just told you the measurements.
Oh, okay.
You'll learn all that clinically. But I'll teach it to you next chapter. Okay? We're superficial now. Okay? We're taking those baby steps. We're taking the baby steps so we can go to the next level of learning. Okay? Because if I spit it out all at once, no one would be here at the end of this semester. Y'all would have all failed. And I would feel like a failure and quit. Okay? So we take baby steps. Okay. This is the exact same picture. What is my ovary telling the anterior pituitary gland to do? Right here. What is it telling it to do? Inhibin.
Inhibin.
It says, I've had enough. Give me an LH spike. LH makes the ovary let go of the egg.
Speed out.
Okay? But the ovary has to talk to the anterior pituitary gland. And it talks to the anterior pituitary gland through hormone levels. Okay? The endocrine gland talks to other glands, other endocrine parts of my body through hormones. Okay? I've just had my period. I'm in the what phase? Proliferative phase. Days 1 through 14, proliferative phase. Okay, so now I am in my proliferative phase, but I have, this is late proliferative. So I'm pretty close to ovulation. We call this the 3-line sign. You have the epigenesis, my endometrium's getting thicker, but I have a halo around it. That's late proliferative. Okay? Then I have, see how thick it's getting now? I'm getting ready for ovulation, which happens day 14. Now I'm no longer proliferative, I'm secretory. That's when the endometrium gets really, really thick, and I have posterior enhancement, meaning the echoes posterior to the endometrium are thick. I mean, it's brighter. Why? All the blood inside my endometrium, blood is fluid, right? And you've already learned in physics the speed of sound in blood or water. Okay? That's why. Posterior enhancement. If that was posterior shadowing, this would all be black. I wouldn't be able to see the posterior body of my uterus. That just tells the different ways of the gland. Here's more. Endometrium, endometrium, endometrium. If it has fluid or debris in it, I measure the anterior endometrium and I measure the posterior endometrium. I do not include this debris inside of the endometrium. Or it could just be fluid. Here it is again. Because it has debris in there, I'm going to measure this and I'm going to measure that. Here, I'm gonna measure all the way around. I'm not going to include the halo. This is late proliferative. Here, I've just had my cycle, so it is hyperechoic. Here, I'm almost ready for my cycle, so my endometrium is nice and thick. So here I have my functional layer, I have my basal layer, here's my myometrium, my basal layer, my, this is the layer that I'm gonna discharge during my cycles. Okay. Postmenopausal, I don't have cycles anymore. I don't have the hormones to make my endometrium change. Postmenopausal, it's always going to be a hyperechoic line because my body's not producing FSH or LH. Postmenopausal also, if my uterus is not being stimulated by hormones, then my uterus is going to atrophy along with my ovaries, meaning they're drying up like raisins. Okay? There's just different fluids. What phase is this? Secretory. Fluid inside the endometrium. See how you're measuring the anterior uterus and the posterior uterus. Okay.